Did you since you bring that up with Twitter, did you get a chance to see the Khalen Saunders interaction with the fans this morning and today?
I saw a little bit of it, just a little teeny tiny bit. So did he have like a whole like segment of things, or just I just seen a couple of things. So
Yeah, he was responding to a lot of different fans' criticism. And he was actually going back and forth with a lot of people, and he was calling out like some people. It was pretty comical actually. There's one thing though that I wanted to ask you about that he brought up. And you being a former athlete, yet you weren't really around during the Twitter age. It's obviously
mhm.
grown since you retired, but he did say this one tweet which I saw. It was he goes, nah, but for real, what's y'all beef with athletes being on Twitter? LOL. I'm starting to see why LeBron was going hard with the whole shut up and dribble thing. I put my dicky pants on one leg at a time, just like y'all. I'm a normal guy. I just want to enjoy the app like you guys. What do you think about that?
Now look, I agree. I do. I think you know, part of it is when somebody's criticizing your play and you out there, you're working as hard as you can. I mean, you're giving it your all. And I think sometimes fans don't realize how much time and work that you're putting in every single day to come out there just to play on Sunday. And I'm telling you, I'm talking about the pain and the aches and like the early mornings to get to like the training room, just to get your knees feeling right. And so the difference between I say us and like regular people, right, is that when we get hurt, they trying to get you back on the field as fast as possible. So they don't care if you have the flu, they don't care if you're sick, but they don't really care about those things, right? I remember one time I was sick. I think I had a flu. They was like, "Well, come on in this morning, man." I'm like, "Man, I got the flu. Like, I barely got out of bed." And I lived up north by the airport, and I drove about 30. It's usually about a 30-minute, 35-minute drive. It took me about an hour and a half to get there. When I'm telling you, I had no energy getting there. But as soon as I got there, they pumped me with fluids. They gave me antibiotics. They was trying to do everything to kind of get me back on the field. Like, look, we need you on Sunday. And so I think when we understand the investment that we take, taken away from the family, because most of the guys, we're at work most of the day. We're there all day. So you kiss your kids goodnight, and you don't see them in the morning. You don't take them to school, and so you leave out. When you come back home, you're halfway tired. The kids are getting ready for bed, and so it's a long day. It's a monotonous day, and sometimes when you feel like people are not appreciating what you do, and telling you suck all the time every chance you get, it could get man upsetting, and it's a little crazy. Now, look, I played in Philly, so I already know how that Philly was like that, through the radio and the media. So now Twitter's got like I could come in your living room and right now in front of you and just start talking smack to you, right? And that's the crazy
Right.
because you can't do anything back. What can he say? I mean, everybody gonna tough talk behind the screen, right? That's the thing about it because you're like, oh, if I had this sucker in front of me, it'd be a whole different story. So I think that's what it is. I think it's what it is.
What was your all's take on Khalen Saunders' kind of his Twitter rants today?
I, I understand why he's frustrated. I think, being a part of the Chiefs team, obviously Mahomes in the offense is going to get most of the flattery. Everyone's going to be talking about how Mahomes does this, Mahomes does that. And then when you look at, kind of sometimes I feel like our defense might feel like the redheaded stepchild, where they feel like they don't get the credit they deserve. People aren't looking at the whole picture. They're looking at like the defense is only going to be considered good if they have so many sacks, and they're not looking at maybe pressures or all the passes deflected, which I actually believe we lead the NFL in passes deflected at the line. So there's just a lot of different metrics that I feel like people aren't looking at, and I can understand how that would be so incredibly frustrating as a player, especially when you're going out there, like Jason said, you're giving it your all the things you're doing in the building, outside of the building, just to show up every day. And I can understand why he's frustrated. Now, I don't necessarily think he needs to be going back and forth with every single fan, because sometimes I feel like they focus on the negative things instead of all the positive fan interactions on Twitter. I feel like the negative ones kind of get the most limelight, unfortunately. But I don't think that with the fan who said like, why are you even on Twitter? And it's like, because he's a guy, let him be on Twitter. He's still a person, there's a lot of,
Because he's a human, yeah. Like they want to enjoy it just as much as we do. So
yeah. So
yeah. Well, I feel like he had a little bit of remorse at the end. So,
Yeah, he did.
a few of his last messages, he was like, "You're right, I apologize," or "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that." And so I get it. Like, he's at home sick, same, right? So,
Yeah.
like, afterwards, he was like, "Okay, let me get my apologies out." Like, maybe somebody tapped him on his shoulder, like, "Okay, now wait a minute. You can't go off on everybody in Chiefs Kingdom." Like, we get it.
I mean, I'm gonna be for real. I had a whole Khalen Saunders appreciation post back in November because he's one of my favorite players to watch on the defense. Like, I enjoy watching him. He's a blast on the D line. Like, he's a big dude, but he runs fast and he like makes those kind of quick, like crazy little plays. And I love Khalen Saunders. We do like players of the game every week on our podcast. He was one of my players of the game a few weeks ago. So I really enjoy Khalen Saunders, but I understand it's like you're being compared to the guy that gets an A+ on the project every single week, right? And it's got to be frustrating because Mahomes and Kelce and those guys, they're always going to get praised by the media, and then our defense isn't quite getting the same praise. But I feel for them in that way for sure, because I think as a fan, you also know they're all putting their bodies on the line week after week for us, for our entertainment. And we appreciate that too, right? So you got to take it for what it is. And I understand his frustration, but sometimes, yeah, I'm like, I wish you would just tune out the negativity a little bit more, because there are a ton of us that do appreciate you. So,
and I think really like the voices that appreciate you, you expect that. And you thank everybody, you appreciate all the great voices that celebrate what you do out there on the field. But it's always like the negative ones that's always in the back of your head, in the back of your mind. And you just like, man, like, what do I have to do? And so I guess when you start pulling back a little bit, because you realize like, I'm going too far down the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like, it's like mob mentality, it's just, okay, well, one jump on you. Well, why did you say that about? It's like, okay, look, I'm just going back away from the entire conversation. Okay. Look, y'all have a good day. All right. Keep, celebrating the Chiefs, keep rooting for us. I'm signing off from this conversation. And to me, it's a skill set, because I've called when I first got on Twitter, man. I'm a nice guy. I am. I'm a big gentle giant most of the time. Till somebody frustrates me, and I'm just like, okay, what do you want to do, right? But you can see it as long as you understand what to expect. I think when you get on Twitter and don't even feed into it and just like, hey, let the negative stuff come. Don't even respond to the negative things. It says you don't have to constantly, kind of try to protect yourself. You don't have to always speak up when somebody's coming in and saying these different things. But let me ask y'all, okay, y'all on Twitter, what if y'all had some advice for the guys not to get caught up in that? What would it be? So help the guys out.
I think for me, it's just it's gonna come regardless. I mean, this team is 11-3. This team just won their 7th AFC West championship.
Come on.
And there's always going to be something that Chiefs fans are always going to nitpick at. I say it like I've been a fan since the 90s, right? I was sitting at Arrowhead at 2-14 and -10, okay? So the thing is we're so spoiled now because it's been so good for so long.
Yeah.
So I think, for me, it's the players just need to realize, like, you got to have that tough skin and you got to have that grit. You can't let those things personally get to you, because it's going to come regardless. And at the end of the day, use it as fuel out there on the field. Like, for me, it's, if you're going to talk about me, let me go out here and show you what I can actually do, because I want to shut the commentators up. So you just can't take it personally. You got to know what's going to come. We could go to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl, and they're still going to find something negative. That's all I got. Just,
yeah. And I feel like
that's it.
It probably happens in every fan base, right? But it's in fan bases like these where you do have a chance at the Super Bowl every year and you really want to see the best out of your guys. And I think most of us come from a good place, right? Like we're all coming from a place of like, we know what you guys are capable of and we just want to see that. And I do think, like Jody said, like a lot of us have been there from the beginning of it, where you did have a lot of losing days, and now we're spoiled with the winning days, and it's like, okay, take advantage of it. Like, that's all we want to see. It doesn't come from a place of like anything malicious, anything like that. But I do think the internet grants you a place, and that's comes with the freedom of speech, right? But it grants you a place to say whatever you want to say, and you can say it to your favorite player on the team. They might happen to see your tweet, and that comes with the territory, right? And like, you might not expect them to see that tweet, and then they do, and it's like, oh crap, like I might not have meant that, or I might have tweeted that in the emotion, or whatever it is. And so even like over time of like, just even me being on Twitter, I'm like, I got to be more careful with what I say, because I don't always mean what I say in the moment, because it just comes from a place of like watching the game and like, oh my gosh, why didn't you try on that play? And then I'm like, no, I know they tried, like that's silly. But I think, I think players just need to remember it's all out of passion. It's all out of love. At the end of the day, we're going to ride with our team no matter what. At least the majority of us. Now there's a few bandwagons, of course, but that's with any team, right? So especially when you have Patrick Mahomes on your team, that's just going to happen. So,
I know for me, just growing up and being an athlete and playing at a high level at every sport that I played in, I was my own worst critic. So like, I didn't need everyone else telling me like, hey, you need to do this. I can't believe this is what you did with this play, et cetera, et cetera. Because I was already thinking all of that in my head.
Yeah.
And I heard it from other people. It just, it eats away at you. And then things in my personal life when I became an adult, and I used to fight back all the time. And I was like, no, like, you need to know how I'm feeling. This is making me upset. And what you're saying isn't fair. And what I realized it was doing is it was just digging this negativity, and it was just dropping it on top of me. It's like I was getting into this hole, and I had to learn to just not care about the outside noise. They don't know me. They don't know how I'm taking this information. They don't know what's going on inside my head. They may be trying to help, but they're not doing it in a way that's conducive to me. So I had to just learn to tune it out. And when I did that, and everyone, Lexi and Jody know, especially, like, I'm a very positive person. So I'm not normally the one you're going to see on Twitter that's going to be super negative. I'm always trying to spin something in a positive light. That's how my dad raised me. He was always like glass half full. And he was my biggest coach in life. And that's probably the biggest lesson I learned from him is like, don't listen to the haters. Do what is best for you. Listen to yourself, and use thoughts that are conducive to growing and to learning and becoming a better athlete or a person or whatnot. And so that's what I would recommend to these players is that like, surround yourself with what is conducive to help you grow and help you live a more positive life. Like, ignore everything else. It's not worth it. So
hats off to your dad for that. Look, I would have loved to have each and every one of you ladies in the huddle with me, because I know y'all have been ready. I know y'all ride or die.
We're ready.
And I love it. I love it. Could have loved to have you on the team. But I think those things are very important. And kind of what you were saying, and I know what ends up happening in the locker room is this. Andy and the coaches and all the guys always harp on, listen, the voices that matter are in this room, okay? Of course, your family's going to love you, but those voices that matter, the one that's going to, rub your wounds when it's happening, the ones that understand that going to battle with you, how that feels. And so understand who's supporting you. And I've learned a long time ago, like, you got to take criticism and praise the same with a grain of salt. You have to. And so you got to be balanced. It's got to be a balance there.
Right.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it. We're saying, oh, well, you suck. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Right.
Yeah.
In one ear out the other. In one ear out the other.
Yeah. I used to see Priest had it down a pat. He used to say things. People was like, hey, can I get an autograph? He's like, no, thank you. Priest, well, you suck, but thank you. I appreciate it. You see, I'm like, okay, just everything's just rolling off you. He's like, yeah, that's where you got to be.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.